Welcome to ITWC's inaugural Top Women in Fintech and Blockchain celebration. I'm Fawn Annan, CEO of ITWC, and I have the pleasure of kicking off the celebration today, where you will meet some of Canada's most inspiring women in these industries. Just a few months ago, speaking at the announcement for a grant of women in Fintech, Janet Bannister, managing partner of Real Ventures, acknowledged that technology companies in general and fintech companies in particular lack gender diversity. There was nothing unexpected about these words, nor was there any surprise when a recent Deloitte report stated that fintech has bigger gender problems than it realizes. All the numbers tell a similar story. Globally, women comprise only 21% of senior positions in fintech banks and just 7% of the global fintech founder community. Less than 2% of the US $40 billion in funding raised for startups in 2019 went to companies founded only by women. And women account for only 30% of positions on executive committees in major financial service firms in Canada. While it's tempting to dwell on these numbers, they fail to recognize a recent upturn in the number of women in fintech and blockchain. The increase in the amount of funding they are receiving, though small compared to their male counterparts, the financial sector's heightened awareness of their many contributions and opportunities for women to create change early on the emerging cryptocurrency space. For me, there's a feeling of hope when I scan the financial news and I talk to the women that you're going to hear from today. They're bright, passionate, engaged in helping other women climb the ladder, and they are really ready to share with all the enthusiasm they have. This is the inaugural year for Canada's Top Women in Fintech and Blockchain Recognition Program, and I'm pleased to call it a success. We have more than 100 nominations with 37 finalists sent to the judges for consideration. The dozen women selected for the honor roll are amazing, and I am pleased we can share their inspiring stories with you today. I'm excited ITWC is able to provide an amazing platform for today's celebration and discussions, but we couldn't do it without the help of many others. Thank you to the change makers who are here today, and I want to recognize them. Thank you to those who submitted nominations, those attending in a chairing capacity, our esteemed panelists, speakers, and judges, and our many supporters. And finally, a special thanks to the inspiring honorees in ITWC's first Top Women in Fintech Blockchain celebration. Your visibility is a powerful beacon for other women and a strong statement that they too can shine in a traditionally male-dominated field. Enjoy the show. Here's Karsten Arend.
Thank you, Fawn. Hello, my name is Karsten Arend. I've been in the blockchain and fintech space since 2015, and I'm very pleased to join Fawn as co-chair of the inaugural Canada's Top Women in Fintech and Blockchain Awards. I'm happy to be part of an event that brings profile to one of the technology sector's greatest assets, women. Today, you're going to hear the stories of 12 amazing women. You'll be inspired as they share, in their own words, all that they've accomplished during this time of incredible change. While it's still early days in crypto and blockchain, more and more real-world applications are being implemented. Canada's open banking initiative is picking up steam, while regulators and central banks are actively looking at how they're going to deal with the growing popularity of cryptocurrencies and, at the same time, develop their own central bank digital currencies. We are still in the early stage of true fintech, but the impact of cloud computing, IoT, artificial intelligence, and blockchain will surely supercharge further significant change. From a mainstream perspective, we already see software-driven financial solutions digging deep into the financial services value chain to provide new decentralized finance solutions, from investments to payments, microfinancing, robo-advisor services, even with the banks, and NFTs, which are non-fungible tokens. Later this afternoon, I have the privilege of moderating a discussion about the fascinating possibilities of blockchain. I urge you to pay close attention because there may be unexpected global opportunities that you haven't imagined yet. Throughout the past 6 years, I have experienced a special camaraderie in the fintech and blockchain spaces that I just don't see in other parts of the economy. There is a collaborative spirit that sees small and large organizations working together rather than competing. I'm pleased that you'll get a taste of that through the presentations and the celebratory videos showcased today. Please enjoy the afternoon, and I hope you'll take away lots of things to think about. Here to lead us through the afternoon is Kalea Carrington-Smith, Executive Director of the Alberta Blockchain Consortium. Kalea, how are things in Western Canada today?
Thanks, Karsten. The weather in Calgary is amazing this week. Welcome, everyone, to the 2021 Canada's Top Women in Fintech and Blockchain celebration. I am so pleased to be with you here today at this fantastic event showcasing the achievements of Canada's talented female leaders in this emerging technology. For those of you who may not know me, I'm the Executive Director for the Canadian Blockchain Consortium. It's our national organization for bringing together the diverse companies, thought leaders, and industry members in our thriving blockchain ecosystem. I am so proud that our blockchain and fintech sectors are growing more and more inclusive, and as we'll see here today. I'm also the co-founder and director of the Canadian Blockchain Association for Women, where we work to accelerate Canada's progress in our industry. In addition to my ecosystem roles, I'm the co-founder and CEO of Absolute Combustion, an Alberta-based clean tech company that creates innovative and low-emission solutions for industries like energy and aviation. So in my own journey towards blockchain and fintech, I actually started about 5 years ago, and I became fascinated, especially with its potential for like economic and social transformation. And I just saw endless possibilities for a fair and more equitable world where people could become empowered to take control of their own financial destinies. I was so wildly committed to this. I actually cashed out my kids' RESPs that I'd been saving for since about 2005, and I bought them all Bitcoin. At the time, people were pretty skeptical of me. I was called like pretty well crazy, horrible mom, and I was absolutely taking from my kids' future. But I knew, I trusted this, and I was building my kids' future. And I've devoted a pretty significant part of my time in my career to helping to build this industry here in Canada. And I think that everybody in the blockchain space has definitely taken risks to be here. And it's a really exciting time because we're seeing this mainstream embrace of a technology that we've all had so much faith in. I know it's been like a crazy wild ride of late with this like 30% drop in Bitcoin's value, but I really think that once the regulatory hurdles are overcome, Bitcoin will be a very important part of our economy moving forward. So today, as we honor 14 of Canada's top women in the fintech and blockchain space, as selected by their peers, the importance of strategic risk-taking is definitely a message that you're going to find woven throughout so many of the stories that you're going to hear this afternoon. So I'm really happy to be a part of this event, giving extraordinary women their due recognition and providing inspiration and encouragement to those who have yet to find their niche in an industry that has definitely been traditionally dominated by men. So before we hear from our honorees and our experts on two very informative panels, there are some heartfelt thank yous required to the organizations and associations that have supported this inaugural effort. Please offer a virtual round of applause to corporate sponsors Proofpoint, a software and the service security firm, and Okta, an identity and access management specialist. Without their support, today would not have been possible. A thank you also to our event supporters, the Canadian Blockchain Association for Women, Canadian Prepaid Providers Organization, the Canadian Blockchain Consortium, WIT Network, the FinTech Growth Syndicate, FinTrack, Transformation Works, and Crypto Chicks. We have a lot of ground to cover, and I want to make sure you, the audience, knows how to get the absolute most from today's event. So right now, I'm speaking to you from what IT World Canada calls their Jumbotron. It's the main viewing screen. To the right, you will find a messenger box. There are a lot of other interesting things on the platform that you should definitely check out, especially the sponsor downloads, but pay very special attention to the messenger box. It's going to provide some really key bits of interesting information throughout the show. It will also display your questions. So if you go to your Twitter account on your phone and ask your questions here using the hashtag Women in FinTech, it will magically appear in the messenger box. You can also use hashtag Women in FinTech to offer your good wishes to the honorees as they are announced. Those announcements are going to come throughout the afternoon as part of 3 videos. So let's get to it. In the first set of our 4 honoree videos, you'll meet the managing director of a multi-million-dollar blockchain think tank, a crypto educator and investor that teaches teens across Africa about blockchain, a coder, educator, and a leader who fights to get girls and women involved in crypto, and the founder of several fintech companies. Roll that video, please.
Our honor roll starts with the Vice President of Research for the Linux Foundation, Hillary Carter. Few people are more knowledgeable than Carter about the real-world applications of blockchain technology. In her previous role as Managing Director at the Blockchain Research Institute, she helped launch and administer the research program in 2017, and over 4 years, the Institute produced more than 100 research projects exploring how blockchain tech was changing the private and public sectors. Carter is adamant those applications, especially in the finance world, are ramping up.
Real examples of blockchain transforming finance, I think, were demonstrated profoundly in 2017 with the initial coin offering revolution. The opportunity to raise capital without traditional intermediaries was nothing short of a paradigm shift. Now, a lot of work has to happen before that mechanism takes hold to satisfy the regulatory environment. But I think that decentralized finance enabled by blockchain technology is here to stay, and that traditional financial services institutions need to pay careful attention as to how they can implement such mechanisms in their fundraising activities in the future.
Carter says the influence of blockchain on finance is matched only by its potential impact on marginalized people who have been left behind by traditional finance infrastructures.
Rarely has there been a technology that has inspired me to take a complete career change such as this. And I'm hopeful for the opportunities that blockchain technology creates, not just for the global economy, but for marginalized stakeholder groups the world over. I'm very excited for the disintermediation opportunities that will empower women all over the world to become more active participants in the global economy. In particular, for women who have had men be their financial intermediary. Blockchain, because it enables peer-to-peer value exchange, will create opportunities for women all over the world to participate in the global economy in a way they haven't been able to before.
Our next honoree knows a thing or two about the underlying technology of cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin. Anne Connolly is an entrepreneur and faculty at Singularity University and SU Canada, which is part of a global organization that offers executive educational programs. Connolly says the world has seen only 1% of blockchain's full capabilities in the real world. Expect that number to go way up.
What's so exciting about this technology is that it's actually disrupting society at its most base level. So everything from money and finance to identity to governance, we're going to see systems that we've built our societies upon being totally reimagined to ensure that there's a greater access for everyone and a greater future for everyone.
Connolly also says Canadians should bet big on digital currencies, describing cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin and Ethereum as the future of money and decentralization.
Women are a really key part of the future of finance. This is particularly true in blockchain, where blockchain applications are going to be building the future of societies, and we need more diversity in this space. So it's wonderful that we're celebrating all these incredible women today, but we want to encourage even more people of color and women to be joining these industries because they're so critical to ensuring that our future and our future societies are extremely accessible and open to everyone.
The financial sector is packed with talented startups craving for attention. Just ask the CEO and co-founder of educational nonprofit CryptoChicks.ca, Elina Ismail.
There is a lot of pressure that coming towards Canada's banks to innovate. because there are more and more smaller companies and startups are coming onto the play and basically taking out the business from the banks. Even though it's hard and banks will not disappear, so don't get me wrong on that, but they forced to change their business, to modernize their business, to make it cheaper for the customers, more convenient and better customer service in order to actually survive in that competition right now. And especially right now, we see lots of blockchain startups and cryptocurrencies that coming out into the play. And people are all over the world right now is making money on lending, borrowing, on all the fintech products that are cryptocurrencies and blockchain are providing, and therefore taking business away from the banks. So they are forced to be very innovative.
A lot of that talent base is led by women with great ideas. And Sina Nikova encourages any entrepreneur going through the startup life to lean on her for help.
And this is probably for fintech place, for blockchain space for the women, and this is very useful information. So they can always contact me for the help of bringing their startups to life, because I went through my startup, I brought it to life. And blockchain startups are right now going right from the start up to the public sale in 2 months, right? So like for the company, for the normal startups, it's not possible. Same for raising money. Blockchain startups are attacked by investors. So investors is actually bringing money to blockchain startups and trying to kind of like shove it into startup. But blockchain startups are very careful whose money they take. So this is something that's very, very new. And I just went through this experience, and that was, for me, is fascinating. So this is something I can share with everyone who would like to learn, and they can contact me and we can organize something.
Our next honoree, Amy Tahar Lawyer from Templeman, says people should buckle up for serious change in the coming years when it comes to finances.
Blockchain in finance right now is being, one of the easiest use cases is peer-to-peer payments. And I think where we see that moving toward is really DeFi, and how that's different from traditional finance, because it so powerfully disempowers middlemen and gatekeepers and empowers everyday people by peer-to-peer exchanges. So looking at decentralized finance as this unbundling of traditional finance. So it takes out the key elements of the work done by banks, exchanges, and insurers today, like lending and borrowing and trading, and puts it in the hands of regular people. And so those peer-to-peer payments are still really relying on centralized financial middlemen to do the work. Decentralized finance is this peer-to-peer system that's not controlled by any centralized institution like a bank.
Tahar says the swell of interest in cryptocurrency and impressive capabilities on display from burgeoning fintechs is putting a lot of pressure on financial institutions to keep up. Combine that with the work that credit unions are doing, and the future of financial and other payment services is looking very promising.
I really look up to what the World Council of Credit Unions is doing collectively for the betterment of humanity and innovating strongly in that space. And that's probably the strongest reason why I look up to them, because there are many smart people, there are many hardworking, innovative individuals and institutions. Canada is so fortunate to have. But beyond that, what really differentiates the people that I look up to is really, like I was saying earlier, merging that, profit and purpose serving functions to create that synchronously. And I really see that happening within fintech through a lot of the credit unions, actually.
from 4 women beyond our winners who are helping shape the future of the fintech and blockchain communities. We are going to preview the first one for you here as part of the live show. So Jamie Leverton, she is the CEO of Hunt 8 Mining, and she actually leads the largest publicly traded Bitcoin mining firm in North America. She's going to share her thoughts on why the blockchain space is a fantastic career choice. We also have 3 other established leaders with very interesting messaging. We have Sasha Christic, she's the president of MasterCard Canada. We have Heather Taylor, the CFO of the City of Toronto, and Sarah Paquette with the federal government's Financial Intelligence Agency. But you're going to have to find them on our platform later. Before you go looking, let's hear from Jamie.
I have spent the last 20 plus years working in the technology industry in Canada. Most recently, I took over the helm at Hunt 8 Mining on the 1st of December, which is a whole new adventure for me, now being in the blockchain and crypto space. But really, I think it was a natural progression for me. I've spent the second half of my career really focused on transformation and high growth mandates. I love to be on the leading edge of technological innovation, and I firmly believe that blockchain and crypto technologies are at the forefront of the next generation of technological evolution or revolution. And therefore, it's exactly where I want to be in the center of. I think what blockchain really represents is the opportunity for mass decentralization, for bringing the individual back to the center of autonomy and how they interact in the digital world, which I think is really what we all thought the internet would bring, but through the centralization of some of the largest players in the space, it really didn't live up to the dream that we had for the internet. And I think blockchain and blockchain technologies really represent the opportunity to imagine that vision in a tangible way, again, by putting the individual at the center. Hunt 8 is one of the largest publicly traded Bitcoin mining companies in the Western Hemisphere. We are blessed to have the largest treasure trove of self-mined Bitcoin of any publicly traded company in the world. And we are at home right here in Canada. Our corporate headquarters is Toronto. All of our operations are in the province of Alberta. And we feel like we are in an incredible position to be Canada's next great technological innovator. Bitcoin mining is really high performance computing at a scale never quite seen before. The value of Bitcoin has now surpassed $1 trillion market cap globally. Bitcoin itself is the largest decentralized example of blockchain in action. It trades 24 hours a day, 7 days a week in every corner of the world. And Bitcoin miners such as ourselves are responsible for keeping that network humming, for keeping it secure. We process all of the transactions that occur on the network and are responsible for the introduction of new Bitcoin into the ecosystem approximately every 10 minutes. The Bitcoin network itself and the miners that make up the network is completely decentralized. Miners operate in every corner of the globe. Every company today, in one way or another, is a tech company. Starbucks would tell you that they're a technology company. And therefore, if women and girls aren't pursuing careers in the tech space, they're really being left out of the lion's share of where the excitement's happening, where innovation's happening, where career progression is able to be sought at scale. It's also the most exciting industry in the world. I have never had a day that felt like any other day in my 20 plus years working in this space. I feel it's a blessing to have a career in an industry that is constantly challenging you and evolving. And keeping things incredibly interesting. I think it's a place that every girl and young woman should consider as they build out their career paths.
Thank you, Jamie. Well, the research is pretty clear. Women are underrepresented in fintech. They have a tougher time finding leadership roles like Jamie, and they are more likely to leave or experience job loss at times of a crisis, kind of like a pandemic. We'll be showing some of those stats in the messenger box throughout the afternoon, but please don't be discouraged. As you'll hear in the highlights of the following panel, there is significant work being done to create a culture where the next generation of women can thrive. I say highlights because this is just a taste of the conversation sponsored by Okta and Proofpoint. To watch the full video, come back to the platform tomorrow and look for the full discussion. The moderator for the panel is Emma Todd, CEO of MMH Blockchain Group and an absolute powerhouse, a one-stop shop for strategy, marketing, public relations, and events for blockchain and distributed ledger technology companies. Our panelists are Jax Painter, a senior product marketing manager for Okta, Lucia Miller, she's with Cisco Proofpoint, and Karen Budahezi, Vice President, Digital Enablement and Issuing at People's Group, as well as Ariane Arend, the Director of Retail Sales at Cartonics. I'm looking forward to a great conversation between these talented women. I'll give the floor over to you, Emma.
Why are you excited to be in the fintech and blockchain right now? Jax, we'll start with you.
Awesome, thanks. So I'm excited for a number of reasons. One, on a more personal note, for me, being in the fintech industry and really banking in general, it's so easy to see the things that I work on and experience them in real life, whether it's, me making a transaction or interacting with a bank, or seeing it kind of affect my family members and friends and people I'm around. So that's one reason. The other reason is because it's just a great industry to be in. There's so many research and data out there that says, at some point, every company is going to be a fintech company. And that is so powerful. So the fact that I can kind of be a part of that at more of the early stages, I think is just a great opportunity.
I'm happy to share, why I'm here, whether it's payment, fintech, alternative payments, whatever the digital banking, whatever the terminology is. I've seen it, kind of grow over the years and evolve. I can tell you when I first started, nobody really understood what the internet was, let alone, how it was going to impact our lives today. Jumping into this space, it's really fascinating to see the evolution and how it's all common, and how exponential growth the technology has just taken over time, and where it's gotten us finally to this point where it's just growing like crazy. So the innovation is really what's driving me to be here in this space today. It's very exciting.
Excellent. And I'm curious, why do you ladies think that women should think about having a career in fintech or in blockchain?
So I can start taking a stab at it, and really that will probably explain why I'm excited about this space as well. And to me, that is such an exciting, fast-paced development area, really focusing on staying on the cutting edge of technology. Also, I will speak more from that security and privacy point of view, since that's a lot of what I focus on. But for example, I'm on the board of directors for a company that focuses on zero-knowledge technology. It's a fintech company, and it really focuses on making it easy for enterprises to establish trusted interactions with their customers that really simultaneously solve for security, customer experience, and privacy while using cutting-edge encrypted technology and a platform for best-in-class identity solution. But again, it's just staying on that cutting edge and solving real challenges in the space, and things that we all, whether you're in the tech space or not, you can fully relate to every day.
I can jump in. So I've come to the fintech space really from a circuitous route. I started in traditional, companies such as Xerox and TELUS and Microsoft and GE Commercial Finance and American Express, which are all technology and or finance related companies. And being in sales and business development, account management, I think has been a great building ground. It's a space where women can really excel if they believe in themselves and get the appropriate education to present their solutions and capabilities.
Just to add on to that, from a cybersecurity space, so at Okta, we really help enable and secure identities, and fintech is continuing to evolve, and your identity is going to be kind of at the central of all of that. And so cybersecurity is also a great space to be in, because as fintech and blockchain continue to evolve, obviously security is going to have to be at the heart of that. And so I think it's a really great opportunity for women to kind of be a part of something that is going to continue to grow, and where we can make a really big impact.
Excellent. So tech in general has not attracted a lot of women. Do you see that changing in the fintech and blockchain sector?
I think from my perspective, I've already seen it. So when I first started in my career, I was the only woman in the office, and that has substantially changed. Obviously, as we grow and companies become more global and remote, that opens a lot of opportunities as well. But I've already seen it start to change, and I think COVID has really accelerated how companies find work and how they're flexible to meet every type of employee, women included.
We have definitely made a lot of progress. Now, like if you take, for example, cybersecurity, which is my area of expertise, this is such an interdisciplinary field that brings together technical skills, soft skills, as well as law, public policy, and risk management. With risk management as the most significant cybersecurity responsibility, but really that drives a lot of a clear understanding of business impact of cyber incidents. Additionally, if we just look together at the diversity and the need for diversity in our workforce, in tech specifically, in the boardroom, really thinking through that brings such a broad compendium of backgrounds, cultures, experiences, perspective, and viewpoints that really leads to better decision making. So we owe it to ourselves to make sure that we mentor and encourage more women to join this space, which is such an amazing, fast-paced area.
Where can women shine in fintech? Do women have an advantage that they can capitalize on? Karen, let's start with you.
Just to piggyback on the previous question, that there are so many different roles for women within the fintech and blockchain community. It's not just, specifically, it's a tech industry in a very tech savvy world right now. I mean, we've come quite a long way. And I don't think there's a role out there that a woman cannot do. The other area that I think that we still have a big gap in for women is on the entrepreneurial sides of this industry. So we are behind in terms of the number of female startups, I think, and being able to attract the dollars, the fundraising, the capital needed in order to succeed. And there's a gap like this for a number of different reasons, one of which, are the number of women who are investors. So part of it is fostering that investor community and increasing that female representation amongst investors so we can help each other.
Yeah, and to add on that, so I kind of came from a background of not being very technical, and through mentorships and just kind of wanting to learn more, I was able to get into the product side to get more technical and understand, the ins and outs of our products. And so I totally agree that everyone has a place. You don't have to come from a technical background. See this gender pay gap, and I think a lot of reasons for that is because sometimes we just feel thankful for having the opportunity versus knowing that we should be how much we can bring to the table and be confident and demand what we should, be paid for what we're worth. A personal example, it reminds me when I started to negotiate for my salaries, I was so nervous. And And my aunt, she's in the tech industry as well, and she kind of guided me through the process. And I said, well, what if they don't want to hire me after I counter and ask for a higher package? And she said, well, then it's a company you don't want to work for anyways.
I know it's very, I guess, scary sometimes, but from my perspective, negotiating is a good way to go, and it should actually look good on you if you do it properly.
I'm curious, how are you using your networks to grow the power of women in the sector? Could you let me know, please?
So for me, it's sort of twofold. One, from my current role specifically, I run a team of brilliant CISOs, and we really focus on advising externally and advocating internally for the broader CISO community. And what I really focus on a lot is one, just really advising broadly the CISOs for other companies or customers. However, I also normally try to partner as much as I can with other female security leaders across the board to make sure that we share what's happening in the latest threat landscape. Are there possibilities for internships that we can provide younger women? Are there possibilities to mentor some of them?
What I've tried to do throughout my career is definitely align myself with other women to lift each other up, to learn from each other, but then also making sure that I kind of have a wide range of networks, because a great example is my husband. He is an engineer, and he and I could not be any different. But sometimes getting his perspective on something on a project I'm working on, and realizing he has great ideas that can kind of contribute to certain things.
Companies complain that they can't find good talent. Should they be hiring more junior people and investing in more training? What do you think?
In certain roles, getting somebody right out of school who's got an excellent education that's very relevant to the role that you're looking to hire for offers tremendous value, because they have the latest and greatest knowledge, something that people that are maybe a little bit older don't have access to. And then there's also something to be said for having somebody with tremendous life experience and career experience, where you can further educate them and give them a broader range of expertise. So I think the answer from my perspective is both.
I think I would put more emphasis on training versus age or experience. Again, depending on the role, it's going to depend on the age and experience that they have. But I think training throughout your career is the most important. So a company to provide that through every aspect as you grow is the most important. So my answer would be really around the training. I think that's the most important.
With the pandemic changing how work gets done, can women leverage this moment to their advantage? Lucia, let's start with you.
Yeah, I would say absolutely. This is a great opportunity for us to really take a step back and look at what you're doing today, the opportunity for learning new skill sets, the opportunity to perhaps venture into areas that maybe you have interest in, but you haven't been able to really take advantage of. And of course, with to how the pandemic has changed the way we work today, right? We may not necessarily have to spend as much time commuting. You may be able to do work from home and balance life and professional work.
So I think COVID has really changed the game for women in general and organizations as a whole. I think before, a lot of times if you were a working mom, you really didn't mention you had kids, or you tried to hide the fact that you had to take your kids to a doctor's appointment or leave early for school. And that's changed because everyone's been forced to work from home. And so starting to normalize that it's okay to be a working mom. And I think men, especially men in power, are starting to see that, because now they have to work from home with their little kids as well. And so there's a lot of just understanding there. And so I think COVID has, if anything, has really helped women in that regard, and men in general, or parents in general. And so for that, I'm very grateful that I can just be more myself and not have to worry about putting on a front or anything like that. So to me, I think COVID is accelerated remote work, which provides more time for families with that work-life balance, but it also just normalized us, and we're all human.
I want to say thank you to our panel sponsors, Proofpoint and Okta, for making this discussion possible. And I look forward to the reveal of the next round of honorees.
Thanks to the panelists. Now it's time to share our second video roll. For those of you who are wondering how this honor roll was even created, 6 weeks earlier this year, we asked for nominations from the community, and then we handed the nominations to a panel of experts who made the very tough choices. Let's have another round of virtual applause for our judges for their commitment. Now on to the video and another 5 women who are making a tremendous difference in the industry. They include a Canadian tech entrepreneur, television personality, and venture capitalist, an accomplished fintech executive who has been recognized as one of the top 100 most powerful women in Canada, a long-standing champion of the fintech industry who provides strategic advice to startups, a next-generation leader providing regulatory advice to Canadian and foreign fintechs, and the executive director of a woman-created think tank. Please roll the video.
Canadian tech entrepreneur, television personality, board director, and venture capitalist. Those are just some of the ways you can describe Michelle Romano. The co-founder and president of Clearco says the same mindset people had when they wanted to get from point A to point B with just 2 clicks on their smartphone is being applied to financial services.
And so the demand of customers was very strong. The customer doesn't understand that banks are regulated. There's lots of complications. It's actually not that simple. But that is really the job that fintechs have taken, is how do we make these incredibly seamless customer experiences where things used to be very complicated before? And that's really what we've done at Clearco. I mean, we had seen that the fundraising process for founders took 6 months of time, was incredibly dilutive, was prone to a lot of bias, and said, look, we can do this faster with AI. So we asked founders to plug in the apps that run their business. Within 20 minutes, we can give them a term sheet on how much capital we can give them and the terms of that capital. And that's completely changed the game. We've invested more than $2 billion in the last 2 years into more than 4,500 different e-commerce companies.
Demand for technologies like blockchain is significant because of its potential applications. In the shipping and logistics space, for example, the ability for organizations to make near real-time decisions on both ends of the ledger is very attractive. Opportunities for growth in this space, according to Romano, are aplenty.
I mean, I think it's never been a better time to start a fintech company. The customer demand is there, and they're looking for options that are totally different. And so I encourage both incredible men and women like we need you to build the products of the future, because ultimately financial services play a huge role in all of our lives. And so I think it's a great time to be building.
For Christine Day, helping lead a relatively small and scrappy online brokerage, such as Questrade, compete against the country's financial juggernauts, means she has to live on the bleeding edge all the time. That scrappiness has helped Questrade become a registered investment dealer, a member of the Investment Industry Regulatory Organization of Canada, and a member of the Canadian Investor Protection Fund. Big banks are well aware of the activity in the fintech space, but according to Day, Questrade's Chief Information Officer, their focus lies elsewhere.
When it comes to how much pressure fintechs are putting on Canada's big banks to innovate, there would be a few things to highlight. The first is that, generally speaking, I believe banks are still much more concerned about big technology companies than they are about fintechs. Although they're keeping an eye, they're looking for opportunities to partner with fintechs. But in general, the large tech companies have the ability to really disintermediate the customer experience and do so in a manner that, extends their existing very data-driven, highly hyper-personalized experiences that they're already offering, and start to kind of extend into financial services and partner with large financial institutions for the underlying banking. And so I think that is where banks feel more threatened, because it comes down to, who owns the customer experience, and whomever owns the customer experience, inevitably owns the customer.
And what's the other area in the financial sector that is garnering enormous attention? Why, that's open banking.
And while this has not yet manifested itself in a formal regime in Canada, it is something that is starting to, become a little bit more present, a little bit more of a topic that is gaining some understanding among Canadians. This notion of, who owns the data, and how the data, should be controlled and owned by the end customer. And this movement towards an open banking regime in Canada is translating into increased venture capital spend, in generally bringing forward opportunity for fintechs in Canada to offer new services to Canadians.
The Catherine Wheel, a consulting and advisory firm, helps small to mid-sized businesses in financial services and retail transform their company through sustainable and company-wide change. As a seasoned innovation and growth practitioner, CEO and co-founder Lina Ismail understands the challenges that entrepreneurs face. That's why she's currently a strategic advisor with MT Ventures and Holt Accelerator. She's also an angel investor and advisor to startups in the B2B fintech space. The past year, she says, has accelerated a lot of innovation in the financial sector.
And, for the most part, I would say consumers during this period in the pandemic are really looking for access to services in a way that they can access them when they want them, how they want them. And I don't think that many of the FIs have responded quickly enough to doing that. I'm not going to place in a blanket, generalization across all of them, but I would say that the fintechs in the marketplace, those that have entered recently or those that have been around, like a Wealthsimple, are actually putting pressure on these banks to innovate.
That pressure is leading to digital currencies becoming the norm, even being accepted by larger organizations and certain banking institutions around the world.
And I would say that with COVID, that has only accelerated. And so what we're seeing is now, with the heightened demand and use of digital channels as a result of the restrictions that have been put in place due to COVID, a lot of FIs have now needed to respond by providing access to an increased amount of information to consumers and capabilities for them to be able to interact with the bank primarily through digital channels. And so I think that there's also an expectation from consumers that the experience is going to become consistent through various digital channels.
Our next honoree is a partner in the financial services regulatory group at Blake, Kessels & Graydon. Bonnie Murray has significant experience liaising with federal and provincial regulators about complicated matters, such as compliance issues, regulatory approval applications, and corporate mergers and acquisitions. Murray has a unique perspective into the financial services and payment space, and says traditional banking infrastructures are experiencing a serious shakeup.
I've been in the payment space about 10 years, and it's been a really interesting time in terms of legal regulation. We have been in this space where we are sort of stuck with old regulation that didn't contemplate a lot of these new things that are happening, but we have so many new things happening. And in Canada, we benefit from seeing a lot of things that are happening elsewhere and coming cross-border. So the US and Europe and Australia, they often expand into Canada as a test jurisdiction or as an eventual expansion of their business. And so it's been really cool to see all sorts of interesting things that are sort of happening elsewhere, coming down the pike.
Murray says the regulatory world is pretty small from a legal point of view, in Toronto anyway, but she gets a front row seat to the innovation happening in the fringes, and says she's had excellent mentors to help her along the way.
And so I guess for me in my career, it's really been the senior partners who I've worked with who have helped me grow in this area and facilitate a lot of introductions to clients. And so in particular, I think Jacqueline Shinfield, who's well known in the Canadian legal space, she's an expert in payments and anti-money laundering, and I've learned so much from her. And we've been working together for 10 years, and she's really helped me really develop my own practice in this area.
Speaking of front row seats to innovation, Ellis Odin, the Executive Director and Chief AI Officer at the Digital Finance Institute, says big banks have made enormous strides in recent years to keep up with consumer demand. The Institute is a think tank located in downtown Toronto and is tapped into local and global trends, which focus on fintech, AI, and blockchain.
Banks are already very innovative and they already have fantastic solutions available to their consumer. And so the offerings from fintechs, in comparison to what a bank can give you, isn't a huge difference. I would say one of the biggest influencers in the shift, it's definitely a push from the banks as well as from the consumer. So a lot of consumers, we know they want access to easy, simple, convenient options at the push of a button. They want fintech on their phone. They want to be able to apply for a mortgage from the comfort of their home without ever having to go into a bank branch. And so we are seeing that push to digitalization from both ends.
Odin says the swell of interest in cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin and Ethereum is only the tip of the iceberg.
I think that the possibilities down the road are pretty much endless. Obviously, we've seen how much crypto has grown since the very early days in 2009, and hopefully how much it will continue to grow. The possibilities down the line, truly, there's no end to them. We have applications for this in healthcare, in insurance, in processing, payment significantly faster, in really just connecting our digital world. So yeah, there's no end to the amount of possibilities for the future.
Fantastic. These stories of women will be featured in the IT World Canada network of publications over the next week and will be available for on-demand viewing on the platform. So moving along, the open banking debate is something many in this space are passionate would be an understatement about. In the same way early IoT efforts were criticized when innovation was leapfrogging over security, so today innovation is kind of outpacing regulation in the banking sector. So Katie Gibson is the VP with CIO Strategy Council and leading forum of CIOs and technology executives. When innovation outpaces regulation, she says that standards can help set the rules of the game. The CIO Strategy Council is developing open banking standards and invites you to get involved. Katie?
Thanks so much for inviting me today. I'm delighted to be speaking to you alongside these truly inspiring women who are doing incredible, innovative work. At the CIO Strategy Council, we bring together tech leaders from all over Canada's economy to think through how we can accelerate adoption of new ideas and new technologies in a way that balances the needs of all Canadians. So our work covers a broad range of topics, from how digital vaccine certificates should be created to how to make IT more environmentally sustainable. But one of the biggest issues we're working on, and the one I want to talk about today, is open banking. Open banking promotes a customer's right to share financial information with trusted third parties. It aims to drive competition and give consumers choice by making it easier for innovative products and services to plug into the existing financial infrastructure. So for instance, a customer could allow a mortgage broker to seamlessly access certain details from their bank account to make instant lending decisions. We know customers want more innovation in financial products because they're voting with their feet. And Canada is home to approximately 700 fintech companies whose services are already used by more than 4 million Canadians. A solid open banking framework would accelerate innovation and competition. It would put users in control of their data, and it would enhance security around data sharing. And the UK has estimated that adopting open banking there will boost its economy by between $260 million and $400 million a year. Despite this potential, Canada has not moved particularly quickly to make open banking a reality. Our banks emerged from the 2008 financial crisis in better shape than those in many other countries, so there's been less of a pressure to reform the system. There has been some movement. We know the Senate produced recommendations on open banking back in 2019, and at the end of last year, the federal government picked up the ball and held a second round of consultations to promote an open banking framework for Canada. We've seen recently that data mobility frameworks are included in the new federal data privacy legislation of Bill C-11. And provinces are also getting involved. So last November, the Ontario Securities Commission established a regulatory sandbox to work on this topic. But Accenture's 2021 Canadian FinTech report still found that open banking in Canada remains in the early stages. The EU started making moves on open banking in 2016. We're now at risk of falling behind other leaders like the UK, Australia, our peers in Asia. So how can we accelerate things? There's one ingredient that's essential for an open banking ecosystem, and that's trust. Consumers must have confidence that their data and money are safe. Banks and fintechs must be sure that data and funds transmitted between them are secure and that they won't run afoul of regulators. One of the best ways of creating trust between strangers is by having a common set of rules that everyone works from. The CIO Strategy Council is an accredited standard-setting body, and we're working with partners like the Open Banking Initiative of Canada and the Financial Data Exchange to create a set of national standards around consumer-directed finance. And these standards are more than guiding principles. They'll set the rules of the road and the technical requirements in a range of areas necessary to build an open banking ecosystem. They will cover everything from consumer privacy protections to the technical specifications needed to build systems that talk to one another and support a seamless user experience. So by creating these standards, we aim to encourage innovation and accelerate adoption of new financial technologies. Having common practices and technical standards in place gives companies a degree of confidence that they won't be blindsided by regulatory changes when bringing their new products and services to market. So where do you fit in? The first standard we're working on is focused on the consumer experience. It deals with 3 areas. There are design and experience principles, authentication, authorization, and consent, and data portability. Our standard setting process is open to everybody. It's very collaborative and is very quick. We aim to get a standard drafted, approved, and published within 12 months. And our work is driven by volunteer committees who share their insights and expertise to help create standards that take into account the interests of all Canadians. I know there are a lot of smart people with great ideas here today, so I'd like to invite you all to join in. We're about to release a draft of the consumer experience standard, so this would be a great time to get involved and to share your thoughts. You can find out more about our work and get involved at ciostrategycouncil.com/standards, or you can send me an email at katie.gibson@ciostrategycouncil.com. We hope to see you soon, and thank you so much.
Thanks, Katie. We'll all pass on the word. Building on that, we now have a lively conversation by leaders of the blockchain community. They are going to talk about practical business applications and how they deal with blockchain deniers. As blockchain becomes mainstream, business leaders and social advocates are looking to the distributed ledger to deliver on promises ranging from counterfeit prevention, supply chain management, to helping solve climate change. As you can see, the expectations are pretty high around this technology. So please welcome back our event co-chair, Karsten Arend.
What is the most interesting thing happening in blockchain right now?
One of the most interesting things happening is the intersection of blockchain and digital identity topics, and moving away from the paradigm of everyone has information about you except for you towards a model that it's fundamentally citizen and person centric, where I receive credentials from authorized entities and I can decide what I want to do with it after. Of course, blockchain is underpinning a lot of these solutions.
Alexis, I know you've done some work in this space, so let's go to you next.
Well, I think there's a tremendous amount of interesting projects going on, including in digital identity. I think that's an amazing application. But I would say that the most fascinating thing that I'm seeing right now is that we're at this incredible inflection point where the digital economy and the traditional economy are starting to really integrate. We have all these big movements from Fortune 500 companies, major financial institutions, and in the case of digital assets and investments, individuals who are adopting blockchain at a really unprecedented kind of rate.
Yeah, and Jamie, that's a perfect lead into you.
We're recording this the day after Elon Musk tweeted about Tesla no longer accepting Bitcoin for the purchase of its cars, which was a big positive announcement that he had put out a couple of months ago. And the reason being his discomfort with the energy use of the Bitcoin network, the Bitcoin blockchain network. And so what I'm most excited about is actually the discord that's launched and some of the innovation that I know is coming from miners like ourselves in really driving forward a narrative on sustainable mining practices and an ESG story that's really, really focused on taking the Bitcoin ecosystem into the next generation of what we think is important. We're still very, very early in the lifespan of Bitcoin. It's only 12 years old. And I think now focusing on how we can integrate this technology more cleanly into sustainable mining and clean energy use. We've recently onboarded a new head of sustainability. So I think this is going to create a really, really healthy debate on energy across all industries. And that's what's really exciting for me right now in this space.
Okay, thank you. And Jamie, just to follow up on that, what is the biggest way you see blockchain transforming business over the next few years?
I don't think there's a single answer to that. I think it's a fundamental rethinking of how we interact with the digital world that, as Ileana alluded to, puts the individual at the center. We haven't experienced a digital world that isn't centralized by bodies outside of ourselves. So I don't even think we can imagine the art of the possible that we're going to experience 5 years or 10 years from now, because having the individual at the center really uproots the way business is transacted today in the world of technology.
I would look at another impact that I see really transforming business, which is as this disintermediating technology, it's really reducing the need for a lot of different occupations. And if it's adopted at scale, I think it's going to really transform the future of work. So in normal processes, you have a lot of different intermediaries and functionaries whose main job is to check the provenance and the authenticity of data. And I think as we move forward, there's going to be a really big labor market disruption. But on the counterpoint to that, I think there's going to be a lot of innovation for individuals who are looking to start businesses or have something more sustainable than our gig economy. And I think blockchain is going to be a big enabling factor in that.
One of the most fundamental shifts that I'm seeing is in the recognition that blockchain is a team sport. You cannot, as an organization, typically look at transforming your processes and implement blockchain within the four walls of your org. It doesn't work that way. As an example, Accenture has been working, and this is all in the public domain, with CMHC, Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation, on reimagining the world of mortgages, from mortgage origination all the way through to the back-end securitization processes. And while CMHC has a natural role to play in that ecosystem, it's not an ecosystem that they can single-handedly change overnight by themselves. And so if you read the report that was published a couple of months ago, it details the considerations for the industry overall and what this means for financial institutions and where there is a benefit to the ecosystem, a benefit to all of the employees, right? Because it's suddenly opening up far more interesting job duties and some of the mundane, check this Excel, does this field match that field, and so on and so forth. And it's this recognition that, we now need to collaborate beyond our four walls, often with competitors turned collaborators to adopt new tech I've never seen anything like this, and it's an exciting time to be in this field.
Following on with that, Ileana, what are some of the great use cases for blockchain that you would mention by sector or by industry?
Some of the uses that we're seeing great interest in is around central bank-backed digital currencies. The Digital Dollar Foundation in the States recently announced a couple of pilots that they're going to be doing in this space. In Canada, the Bank of Canada has been very public about Project Jasper, which has had a few phases and culminated in a number of publications. We're seeing similar traction in England and a whole host of other countries. So within the world of financial services, absolutely lots going on.
Jamie, I'm sure you have something to say about the central bank digital currencies. So what other great use cases do you see for blockchain?
Well, I'll just jump in on the central bank digital currencies because I get that question asked a lot about, do I see that as a threat to Bitcoin? And my response is very much, Bitcoin is decentralized. The beauty of it is its decentralization. It has no central authority. It can't you can't apply inflation to it because it's preset. There will be a preset number of Bitcoin, and therefore I actually think that digital currencies backed by central government will help fuel the use case for Bitcoin as a global currency.
Coming from the enterprise side, I think that there are some great projects going on globally. And one of the biggest areas of growth is in supply chain management. The pandemic has really shown a lot of the fragility in our current system. And blockchain enables really deep information awareness across these really complex supply networks, near instant traceability, and just a lot more operational efficiency. And so pharmaceuticals are a really big area where there's been a lot of adoption of blockchain for supply chain management. The fraudulent drug market is $200 billion, which is astonishingly almost at the same scale as the illegal drug market. And blockchain is a technology that can provide the kind of proof of provenance that can protect consumers from, this kind of tsunami of fake drugs.
Alexis, how accepting have you found traditional businesses of blockchain?
That's a really interesting question because adoption is one of the biggest challenges for enterprise blockchain. And a big part of that is because it's such a foundational technology that replaces a lot of these really fundamental data management systems. And it's very daunting for businesses when they're taking an initial look at it. But what I've often found is that pinning down a particular use case, finding, a certain pain point that can be used as a case study or an initial pilot within a company is one of the ways where the adoption process can be made much easier just by sort of starting small and expanding from there.
Traditional business is trying to figure out how it can fit in and how it can add value and how to tackle it. But as we referenced earlier, it's really a reimagining of how businesses need to function if you have to collaborate and you're putting the individual in the middle. So I think it's still early days. I think there's definitely a lot of experimentation, a lot of curiosity, a lot of interest, a lot of desire, but probably my view would be still very, very nascent.
I would actually say that the tech isn't as nascent and the adoption is a lot further along in the private enterprise than the press releases or lack thereof would indicate. Because many a time what's happening behind the scenes is businesses are fundamentally rethinking their business strategy and who they want to be when they grow up, so to speak. And blockchain happens to be one of the enablers. And that is a lot more powerful and far more likely to succeed than when businesses take their existing business models, and then try to bolt on blockchain in the same way as they try to bolt on another technology. It's not technology that's going to solve all of your challenges and rethinking your customer markets that you're in and so on and so forth. So I'm pretty encouraged by all of the work that we're seeing some of our major clients working on just quietly behind the scenes.
How have you changed someone's mind about blockchain?
Yeah, I don't think any individual can change someone's mind in my experience, but I think what
what I've done a lot of as I've moved into this role is kind of guide people to take the journey down the rabbit hole themselves. And it's through that process of education and learning and exploring that I see people's minds changed.
Yeah, and Alexis, your work with the association, have you actually ever tried to change someone's mind if they were not a fan, or how would you approach that subject?
I think one of the ways where I've been able to kind of open people up to some of the possibilities is through taking a look at some of the flaws and challenges in our current economic model and saying, well, is this a technology that could fix this? When we look at the future, we see something that's much more automated and streamlined than we have now. But in order to get there, you have to be able to trust that data. And blockchain is a technology that can facilitate that.
2 words: patience and demystifying. That probably summarizes well the many, many years I have spent evangelizing, I will use that word, to explain to folks what the technology means and breaking it down and making it seem a little bit less intimidating than perhaps it appears on the surface. And over time, with lots and lots of exposure, folks eventually start to wrap their head around it.
Alexis, what do you think are the biggest myths, or let's just pick one, the biggest myth about blockchain?
So one of the things that's come up a lot lately, especially as we've been having all of these announcements from different companies like Google and Honeywell that they've achieved quantum supremacy, is that quantum computing in the very near term is going to be able to break our major blockchain platforms. I would say that we're so far from that point in terms of the functionality of quantum computing that I don't believe that's a serious threat. And NIST down in the States, the National Institute of Standards and Technology, is already opening up a sandbox for post-quantum cryptography. And there are a lot of ways that the two technologies can evolve in parallel, and some elements of quantum computing can actually be used to make blockchain encryption stronger. So that's one that's come up a couple times recently that I do think is a big myth.
Jamie, I know you have no opinion about what are the greatest myths surrounding blockchain, so I'll go to you next.
Well, look, I think it's the energy narrative right now that I'm not going to call it a myth. I'm going to call it maybe a mischaracterization of a problem statement. That's the biggest challenge that we face as an industry to tackle head on, and to use Ileana's word, to demystify that narrative. And to redirect some of that energy to industries that have an opaque relationship with their ESG footprint, and just start to really unpack it in an objective and more frameable way.
The biggest myth is probably that decentralization is a bad thing, or that decentralization is scary, and highlighting that actually decentralization certainly serves its purposes in some areas, and in other areas we are going to live in a hybrid, quasi-open, quasi-closed environment, and that's okay. And it just simply depends on the use case. But folks have gotten into their heads that blockchain equals always fully decentralized, and that's simply not applicable for every scenario out there.
What do you think the audience can take away from this panel, from the opportunities that blockchain presents?
What I would say is that blockchain, even at this early stage, is showing that it is a technology that's going to, basically create a digital replication of our traditional economy. And that means that there's room for absolutely everyone within this technology. There are so many different ways that people can transfer skill sets from other industries. And I would just say that if anyone's interested, look at some of the emerging roles and things like marketing and management and other applications that aren't necessarily technical, because there's a ton of requirement for soft skills in this industry.
I just think it's such a blessing to work in an industry that surprises you every day. No 2 days are the same. You're constantly forced to be learning and rethinking and reimagining. And as somebody with two two daughters myself. I want to spark that energy and creativity and excitement and interest and comfort in coming into a space like this that will challenge and excite every single day. And I want one of my passions is to work and drive that bridge with the next generation to make them feel at home and comfortable and want to be here.
I would say to the audience to follow your interests. There are so many unique ways to fall down the rabbit hole, as a lot of folks in the industry affectionately call the process. So if you have an interest in sustainability, there is an intersection between sustainability and blockchain. If you have an interest in marketing, no shortage of roles that are related to marketing, as well as rethinking the future of marketing technology. If you have an interest in sustainability or accounting background or whatever the case is, add the word of your interest, add the word blockchain together, do a quick Google search. You will probably stumble onto a point of view that's been published by the Blockchain Research Institute or by one of the blockchain consortiums, and use that spark of inspiration to go and find your own path down the rabbit hole.
And I'd also like to thank our panel sponsors, Proofpoint and Okta.
That was a fantastic panel with plenty of takeaways. It's now time to finish meeting with the last of our 14 amazing honorees. In this final group, we're going to find a leader in the cryptocurrency space, recently chosen to lead Accenture's Global Blockchain Innovation Division, a cryptocurrency expert who is helping financial organizations navigate the blockchain space, an advocate for public policy change in open banking, and a legal professional with expertise in blockchain and financial innovation. Please go ahead and roll the video.
One of the world's largest technology consulting firms very much understands the importance of blockchain technology. Accenture's managing director and the innovation lead for Canada, Ileana Orris-Valiente, helps businesses build enterprise-grade solutions that leverage distributed ledger technology. Her areas of expertise span financial services, supply chain, and public sector domains. She previously held the Global Blockchain Innovation Lead role at Accenture, and prior to that co-founded Rubix, and was even the blockchain strategy leader at Deloitte Canada. She says the intersection of blockchain tech and identity management is one that people should pay close attention to.
Blockchain is not the end of everything in and of itself, but of course it is a really powerful enabler, and that model is going to unlock a ton of transformational value in both the Canadian economy and other global economies that choose to go down the citizen-centric model.
Valiente says she expects blockchain to not only further creep its way into our lives through the finance sector, but also unlock opportunities for underserved communities with little or no access to financial services.
I gave myself a deadline. I think it was in 2018. I said in 5 years, I don't want to be on the stage talking about blockchain, because it's become just such a fabric of so many institutions and so many processes that it's about as taken for granted as the internet is. We're getting close to that deadline. So hopefully some more of these programs start to really hit scale.
The next honoree in our lineup hails from AML at Outlier Compliance Group. The company's founder, CEO, and chief AML ninja, Amber Scott, says there's never enough pressure on the big banks to innovate, and that she's inspired by companies like Wealthsimple and Mogo that are helping bring often out-of-reach financial services to the average citizen. She says she's also inspired by the impact of early forms of digital currency.
The moment that I fell in love with Bitcoin really came with the realization that so many of my friends and family have fled as refugees. We didn't come to Canada because we were coming with a lot of wealth and we chose to. One of my best friend's families fled their home country with gold coins stashed in their baby's diapers, and my friend was that baby. One of those coins managed to get confiscated by a corrupt refugee camp guard. And so the idea that you could hold your wealth with a number of words in your head and cross borders and protect that wealth and come to a new place and start with a little bit of something instead of nothing has a phenomenal potential for global humanitarian good that I don't think we can ever overstate.
Scott is passionate about ethical and legal compliance. Her obsession with understanding these risks and devising actionable solutions has led her to work in the financial services industry as well as with Canadian accounting and consulting firms. In 2013, she also founded Outlier Solutions to provide anti-money laundering solutions to Canadian reporting entities. The idea of a permissionless, decentralized platform that everyone can participate in, Scott says, is something everyone can appreciate.
I hope to see more people with access to the financial system. I think that digital currencies can do incredible things in that way. I think that when you look at certain prohibitions that exist in terms of people, women in particular, not being able to do things in certain places like hold bank accounts or transfer their wealth without the permission of a male guardian, this is something beautiful. This is something permissionless. This is something that every one of us can participate in equally. And that's phenomenally powerful.
Speaking of Wealth Simple, its Director of Regulatory Research and Development is our next honoree. Hannah Zaidi says there's actually still a long way to go before we start using emerging technologies like blockchain to their full potential in the financial sector.
There is a mixed uptake by traditional incumbents in utilizing these services and technologies, and that's largely due to legacy, just changing attitudes around what these technologies are able to offer. We're seeing a huge increase in decentralized finance products outside of the traditional incumbent space. The benefits are things like high yield staking, synthetic stock trading, but I do feel like it's going to take longer for those applications to become mainstream.
Zaidi says the global pandemic has changed the way many people interact with their finances, including a shift to digital services. That trend will continue, and so will the interest in digital currencies.
We're seeing significant interest in Canadians and looking at different types of crypto assets as investments. Increasingly, we're also seeing them used as forms of payment and transacting. The position we've taken at Wealthsimple, we don't allow at the moment crypto in and crypto out, largely because it is seen as an asset. But there is a change that's taking place. How do we actually start to utilize and reap the benefits of the utility behind these crypto assets and cryptocurrencies?
Rounding out our list of honorees is Tanya Woods, the General Counsel and Executive VP of Regulatory Affairs for Hut 8 Mining Corp. Hut 8 is a cryptocurrency mining company focused on mining Bitcoin. The lucrative benefits of mining Bitcoin are obvious despite its unpredictability on the market, but that doesn't deter Woods from being a fan of cryptocurrencies.
I do think that Canadians should absolutely develop literacy and comfort with digital currencies. I am very much a believer in different avenues for digital currencies to assist in various situations. For example, we've seen digital currencies play out incredible democratizing impacts in countries where access to currency has been challenging. Digital currency is readily available. And similarly in Canada, digital currencies are showing that they can actually advance digital inclusivity and financial inclusivity.
And of course, the underlying technology that's powering these cryptocurrencies is equally exciting. Woods is adamant that transparency and the verification capacity that this technology brings to internet transactions in the digital space is unmatched.
We're thinking about the benefits of technology for humanity. And I believe that for the first time ever, we actually have an opportunity to keep track of really important things that investors will want to believe in and follow and rely upon, that governments can rely upon, and that customers and citizens can rely upon. And blockchain makes that possible. But it is still a technology and it still requires responsible design principles and deeper policy considerations as it's rolled out. So I'm very optimistic. I see endless use cases ahead of us for the space, and I'm certainly hopeful that our government and our country really adopts the technology and starts to really think on the deeper set of requirements ahead of us.
A huge congratulations to all of our honorees this year, and thank you to everyone else tuning in today.
Huge congratulations to all our honorees, including Lee Nugent, Senior Manager, Canadian Blockchain Capability Lead at Accenture, who unfortunately wasn't able to get on the video. It is incredible to see such a talented group of women shaping the future of this industry. They all deserve so many accolades for their innovation, willingness to take risks, and strong visions for the future of blockchain and fintech. As we wrap up our celebration today, we'd like to thank everyone who joined and made this groundbreaking event possible. And a big thank you to our sponsors, Okta and Proofpoint. And thanks again to our support of the Canadian Blockchain Association for Women, the Canadian Prepaid Providers Organization, the Canadian Blockchain Consortium, WIT Network, the Fintech Growth Syndicate, Transformation Works, FinTrack, and CryptoChicks. Our thanks as well to the panelists who took the time to share their insights and to the audience for attending. A reminder, please fill out the event evaluation you will receive. We would love to be able to plan even better events for you in the future. And if you missed a video or want to share a video with your colleagues, the stories and videos about the incredible women who appeared on the honor roll will all be available here for on-demand viewing beginning tomorrow. So here's a list of the next IT World Canada events. Details are available on the platform and on IT World Canada event pages. So what's an event without a post-event party? Just a few seconds, we're going to open breakout rooms for everyone. We've asked our winners, presenters, and panelists to jump in and join us for some casual conversation. If you have questions around the recent slide in Bitcoin, government attacks on cryptocurrency, at home or even abroad, we've got answers. There's no slides, no agenda, just an opportunity to get together. The link is in the messenger. So be safe, and we'll see you inside or at another event really soon.